And station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
We are ready for the event.
Associated Press, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is the Associated Press. How do you hear me?
Station hears you loud and clear. How do you hear us?
I hear you just fine. Good day, gentlemen. This is Marcia Dunn speaking to you from the Kennedy Space Center. I'd like to start out by asking about next week's visitor, the Dragon. That has some pretty fine imagery, the astronaut knights snaring the Dragon. Tell me all about it and what you're doing to get ready and how prepared you feel.
It's good to be talking to you, Marcia. Interesting about getting ready because we were practicing a bit this morning and then we put our practice on hold so we could do this PAO event. And as soon as this PAO event is over, we're going to be practicing a Dragon again. And what I've been doing earlier today is just doing our computer simulation of the arm, which is similar to what we do at JSC. And right after this event, we will float into the cupola and start flying the real arm in what we call offset grapples. It's a procedure where we go in and actually grapple go over a pin on a grapple fixture, and from that point we call it good and we back up and we do it over and over and over again. So we are getting prepared for our visitor next week.
Are you personally excited to be the one reeling Dragon in? It's a historic first. A lot of eyes are going to be on the whole process. How honored are you to be the one to be there at that moment in time?
Really, I see this as a team effort. Andre and I are flying the arm. We're taking turns flying the arm. And it really doesn't matter who's actually flying the arm when we grapple the Dragon. The important thing is that we do our part of the job for this team effort. And you got to remember there's a heap of folks on the ground that are all working on this too. So it's not just us. It's orchestration of Earth and space station and people on space station to make this happen. So it's a big deal, but I hope this becomes so routine that people won't even pay attention to it anymore.
Well, that sort of segues into my next question. A few months back, I remember hearing you compare the commercial space effort with the wagon trains moving west in our own country. Talk about that a little bit, how you see this in the big history, in the big picture of the history of space flight, this new movement.
Well, right now, space exploration is very expensive, and it seems to be the realm of governments. And they are the ones that are defining what the mission is and what the mission objectives are. However, we're at the point now where commercial enterprise can help supply the goods and services needed to keep the government working in their forefront activities. And an analogy to this is what we do in Antarctica. The Antarctic Research Program is defined by the National Science Foundation, but the goods and services are all contracted out to commercial people that provide the food, the services, the airplanes, the housing. All of that's contracted out. So the government's in the business of exploring the frontier and defining the mission, and they spawn off the support activities to commercial free enterprise, which is a very American thing to do. And that's what happened in the settling of the Wild West of America, where the government would run the forts and define the missions, and then they would get commercial enterprise to supply the goods and services and to build the railroads. And I see this whole story repeating itself again and again as we move from low Earth orbit, and it'll probably repeat itself when we go to the moon and elsewhere.
Dr. Coopers, what's your take on that? As a European, how momentous do you think this upcoming SpaceX launch will be in your view?
Well, it's the start of a next era, and it's a natural process. We've seen this, of course, in the past with all kinds of transportation, with shipping, aviation. So this will happen in spaceflight as well, and it feels very good to be part of that, and I look forward to it very much. This is the start of a real new era, and we'll continue with a rapid pace, I expect, and there's a lot more to come.
Well, maybe either of you can tell me, are you taking any safety precautions for this mission that you might not take for other spacecraft that have come to visit? I'm just wondering if the fact that it's a commercial vehicle versus a government vehicle will mean some changes in the rendezvous practices from your end. Any special precautions?
Well, as you know, spaceflight is very safe. There's a lot of safety precautions for everything we do, for all the vehicles that come from all the nations, and this includes also the Dragon that's coming now. So a lot of people on the ground are working on this, and I can tell you it's very safe. We have a lot of steps where we check everything, the ground and the crew and everybody. So from that point of view, it's not different than any other one. It's safe. And
I'm wondering if either of you have spoken either by phone or via email with Elon Musk. Is he offering any special words of wisdom or encouragement as we go into the countdown?
I don't think either one of us have had a chance to chat with him. I've talked to him in the past, way before this mission, about various things dealing with space flight, but I haven't had any communication with him since this has started.
Dr. Pettit, for you in particular, Americans are taking rides on the Russian rockets until the commercial industry gets on its feet, so to speak. Do you see the future of astronauts, American astronauts, space travel, lying heavily on the upcoming launch as a proving ground, perhaps, as to what might follow in a few years?
I see that any enterprise that wants to build a rocket to fly into space, that's a step in the forward direction. And we, as public watching in on this endeavor, need to be prepared to see a few flops, because that'll happen. And think about what happens in the aviation industry, and you've seen these old pictures of airplanes with 27 wings that collapse before it even gets off the runway, and airplanes that have things that look like umbrellas that vibrate up and down, and we kind of laugh at those. But at the time, these were serious efforts to try to figure out how to fly, and we'll probably see that story repeat again and again, and we just can't quit if the first time or two doesn't work right. So this is just something that it takes a lot of work. We roll up our sleeves, we try. If it's successful, great. We can't let our heads get swollen up too much, because there's always a failure around the corner. And when one of those happens, we just regroup, sharpen our pencils, do some more calculations, make some engineering modifications, and keep going. And I hope that is the ingenuity in the American process that will lead to a commercialization of space.
Well, thank you for that answer. And by the way, I've been following your space zucchini, broccoli, sunflower saga. A question about your coffee, though. Are you sipping coffee up there from one of your mugs that you like to make, or are you using the traditional pouches and straws? I know that's something you've toyed with in the past. I was just wondering how the coffee's going.
The coffee is going great, and most of the time I drink it from a bag, because that's a utilitarian thing to do. You can fly around the room with a drink bag, and I happen to have one here that I was drinking on the robotic workstation here as I was practicing right before this event. However, I do enjoy using my zero gravity cup, and I'll drink tea and coffee from that on occasion, just because we're in space and we can.
Well, good for you, and best of luck next week and for the remainder of your journey, and Godspeed, safe return to Earth in a few months. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Marcia. It's always good to have a chat with you.
And station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the Associated Press portion of the event. Please stand by for a voice check from KRLA Radio.
Station, this is KRLA Radio. How do you hear me?
KRL Radio, we hear you loud and clear.
Well, it's good to talk with you from back on Earth. What's it like up there? We see images. To me, it always looks like weightlessness is in slow motion. Is there anything to that? Describe what it feels like to be in weightlessness.
Weightlessness, it's the opposite of being heavy, and it's hard to describe. It's wonderful. It's uplifting. You can float around the room as Andre is doing here, and we move slow, because if you move fast, you can easily get things out of control. And just for example, I've got a little drink bag here, and if I give it a fast push, it just disappears. It's already in node 2 now, and you don't want to push things fast like that because you'll lose them. They'll bang around on the walls. Maybe they'll knock something else loose. So one of the things that you rapidly learn when you come into space is that slow actually gets things done quicker than fast.
What impacts does the weightlessness have on normal body functions? When you drink liquid and it goes down into our stomach, is there any sensation of it not feeling settled?
Well, actually, you can try something yourself. You can stand on your head and you can still drink because the body takes care of it. It's pushed down to your stomach. So in that sense, we can eat and drink what we want. The control of fluids and food in your mouth is also very good with your tongue. So there's no issue there. So from eating and drinking point of view, it's pretty normal. But you have to be careful with the food, of course, that things don't escape because that might make things a bit dirty and things like that. But that is a thing we have to get adjusted to deal with floating fluids, with floating food during dinner.
What about the sense of movement or speed? I'm told you're moving at like 17,000 miles an hour up there, a couple hundred miles up. But yet you're so far off the Earth. Is there no real sense or feeling of movement?
Well, that's correct. You can compare it actually with a flight in an airliner at about 10 kilometers at altitude, because the angular speed is the same. So the speed of the Earth passing by from a plane is the same as for us at 400 kilometers altitude. So you see that we're moving, but you don't really have the feeling of enormous speed, like you don't have in a plane as well.
Sound at all up there, or is it just the fans and things that run? What's it like inside the space station?
It's kind of like living in the engine room of a ship. We're surrounded by machinery. Space is a place where human beings cannot innately live, and the only reason we can live here is by taking machines with us to provide all the functions. And one of the things that we need to have is air movement, because there's no gravitational driven convection. There's no wind up here, and things can get pretty stale pretty quickly. And so we always have fans blowing and moving air around, and that adds a certain level of background noise. And then we have mechanisms like our treadmill and our stationary bicycle and other pumps and equipment from both systems and scientific viewpoint. And all these things make mechanized machine kind of noises. And when you add it all together, it's a reminder that you are living in a machine, and the purpose of this machine is to allow you to be here.
You have a commercial supply ship coming for the first time up there. What is the importance of that?
The importance of the Dragon vehicle coming up is letting some entity other than the government do the supplies for the space station, for moving off into space. So now the governments, like government-run agencies like NASA, can concentrate on the frontier aspect of being in space. They can define the mission, they can define where we're going and what we're going to be doing, and then we can have the commercial entities supply us the goods and services that we need in order to do the mission. And I like to use the analogy of forts in the Old West in the United States. And the wagon trains that supplied the forts were run by commercial entities and later replaced by the train system, but the government defined what the mission was and ran the forts. And I think we're going to see that scenario play itself over and over again as humanity moves out into space.
A little bit now about the risks up there, space debris. Sometimes we'll see stories about things that are done to protect against that. There's a lot of junk floating up there, or do you ever see anything fly by, or would that be tough to see?
There is a lot of junk. If you look at the radar targets that where they plot them as little dots around Earth, and it's like, wow, we're flying in a cloud of junk. However, space in low Earth orbit is a big place, and the chances of actually running into one is pretty small. However, we do have to watch out for these SAIDs, and every once in a while we do a debris avoidance maneuver, which is a NASA acronym for DAM. So we can actually say DAM on the loops now, and in the context of debris, you will be understood. And we've done a couple of dams since we've been here, and one time we did not have enough warning to do a dam, so we went into our Soyuz as a safe haven in case of collision, but there was not one, and so we popped out of our Soyuz and went back to work.
And then what about these solar flares that we've been seeing from time to time in the news? Is there any extra radiation on you guys, and is there anything you do to protect yourselves?
There's probably some extra radiation. However, we're exoatmospheric, but we're still protected by Earth's magnetosphere. Earth is like a great big spherical magnet with a north and a south pole, and the magnetic field radiates way out into space for thousands of miles, and it intercepts these solar-generated particles and deflects them. It's kind of like Scotty turning up the shields for the Starship Enterprise. And Earth does this naturally for us. And so we don't have to worry from a radiation safety point of view when most of these solar events occur. And the biggest effect of these is that it makes beautiful aurora. And we like to stick our noses against the window in the cupola and look at these spectacular aurora displays that happen every time the sun goes burp.
Lastly, read an article about how the eyeball changes a bit for those who've gone in space. Do you sense any changes physically when you're up there in weightlessness?
Well, there's a lot of things happening with the human body and weightlessness because, of course, it functions best at 1 times gravity 1g, and the body adapts to the microgravity environment. Some things, however, like bone loss and muscle atrophy, these are things that continue on the long run, and we have to do things against that. Now there is indeed some new indications that things happen with the eyeball, and that this investigation is going on at the moment. I mean, we have been going to space for long durations for many years, many decades, and so it's not that serious that we cannot go anymore. It's just something new that's being investigated, and see if this is something that we have to find countermeasures against or something else. So at the moment, it's not an issue that we are very worried about.
Well, it's been good talking with both of you. Thank you very much.
It's our pleasure, and come back and visit us again.
We'll do that. Thank you so much.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
And thank you, Associated Press.
Copy that.
And KRLA Radio. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communication.